What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Risky Ryan Trades. Today we are going to be talking about the power of compound interest and why, if you haven't started investing in the stock market, you really should have started yesterday. And this video will show you how little you really need to put into the stock market if you're very young, and even if you're in your 30s, to have a meaningful amount of money in retirement. We're specifically going to be going over the Roth IRA, and a real quick overview of that is it's an account where you put money in that's already been taxed from your paycheck or whatever, and then it grows inside of this account, and then when you retire, when you pull money out, it is not taxed. So 401k is the opposite. It is not taxed at first, but then when you go to pull it out, it is taxed. So I think everybody should have a Roth IRA because we don't know what the taxes are going to look like, 30, 40, 50 years from now. So here's a quote from Einstein: "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." And in the situation of credit card debt, where you're paying compound interest on credit card debt, I would amend this and say he who doesn't gets absolutely destroyed and crushed by it. So if you ever get a credit card, they're great things. They help you earn money back on your spending, but never make a late payment. Always pay it off in full every single month, because if you are paying those interest rates, this thing that we're going to be going over isn't going to be working in your favor. It's going to be working against you, and like I said, you'll get absolutely crushed by it, but that's a topic for another video. So we're gonna go over what it looks like if you're 18 years old, if you're 25 years old, and if you're 35 years old. And I'll have a link below for this calculator. And I also have some timestamps in the description. So if you want to jump straight to your age, you can do so. However, I would recommend just watching this first section right here so that you have a kind of a basic understanding of what you're getting into. So what we would be doing in this example is investing in the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 is the 500 best stocks in America. You buy into a S&P 500 fund, and it would be like buying every single one of the stocks that you're looking at. And what you're looking at here is the year-to-date returns of the S&P 500. So these are ticker symbols. So this is Microsoft, Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon, Tesla, Walmart, Costco, Coca-Cola, Visa, MasterCard, Progressive Insurance, Uber, etc. So you would, by investing in an S&P 500 fund, you would be investing in all of these companies in different weightings. And the S&P 500, this is the graph. Now, as an example, if you are 18 years old, that would be like investing in 1982, because between 1982 and today is the same amount of time it would take for you to retire in, I forget what it is, like 2070 or something, or 20, no, that's too much. Yeah, no, 2070. So take a look at what the stock market looks like since 1982. So here's 1982. This right here was the great crash of 1987. If you had, just to make the math simple, if you had $1 million, after that crash, you'd only have $65,000 or $650,000. Sorry, that would be nuts. But if you could wait it out a couple years, you get your money back. And then as time progresses, now we're in the 90s. Let's get this a little smaller. This was the tech bubble when everybody was all crazy about the internet. It recovered, and then we get hit with the great financial crisis. Here's COVID. We snapped back pretty quick from that one. This is where we paid the piper for COVID because we printed too much money, inflation went crazy, and the consumer got hurt. And here we are present day. Now I want you to see, in the grand scheme of things, this is important to understand because you might be scared to invest in stocks because they don't always just go up, right? Sometimes they come down. But look right back here, 1987. You see that little thing right there? That was that crash. If you just stayed the course, you know, like if you had experienced this crash and said, oh, I'm done with stocks, you would have missed out on all of this. And a topic for another video, but when the stock market crashes, that's when you invest more. Like you would have wanted to buy right here and right here. You would have wanted to buy the COVID crash and this dip right here. So you should be investing consistently, but when times get rough, that's when you want to add just a little bit extra, a little bit extra, a little bit extra. Okay, so let's dive into, if you are 18 years old, how much you need to invest to be a millionaire by the time you retire. So most people retire at 65, which is what I will be using as the retirement age. However, with a Roth IRA, you can take your money out when you are 59 and a half if you want to, without any penalty. Also in a Roth IRA, say you put $1,000 in there, it earns 10%. So at the end of the year, you got $1,100. You can take out that $1,000, that principal, without any penalty. However, I would not suggest doing that. I would suggest getting a taxable brokerage account. This money is retirement money. Like you put it aside and you forget about it. And then you retire and you're a millionaire. That's the point of this. So you're 18 years old. You probably don't have a lot of money to invest. And someone probably made you watch this video, like an uncle or whoever, and they're trying to help you understand you don't have to put a whole lot of money away to have to set yourself up for retirement. And this will illustrate it right here. So in this balance, let's say you're starting from scratch, $0. Let's say that you can put aside $100, just $100 a month. $100 a month, so $1,200 a year towards this goal of setting yourself up right for retirement. And in all likelihood, once you're in your 20s and 30s, you'll be able to put more away. But it's more important to put a little bit away now than to wait and then put more in later, which I highly suggest that if you skip to this part, don't miss the other parts, because it's going to be interesting to see what it'll look like if you wait till you're 25, or if you wait until you're 35, how much more you're going to have to be putting away just to end up in the same place as if you're putting $100 away a month. So, okay, so $1,200 a year. The S&P 500, if you were to invest in the S&P 500 here, and you were to set your dividends to reinvest, you would get an average 10% per year. Over the last like 50 years, the S&P 500 has averaged 10% per year. Some years are negative, some years are fantastic, but in the end, it's roughly about 10% a year. You're currently 18, you retire when you're 65. The balance, by the time you're retired at 65, you would have $1 million just by putting $100 away a month. And what's even crazier is if you only do that $100 from now until you're 65, and that's it, you will have only put $56,400 in your entire lifetime into this account, and it would have generated $991,000 just for saving $100 a month. You would get paid at the end of this 990 grand. I would say that's a pretty good deal. Now, see this balance accumulation graph? The way compound interest works is in the beginning, it's really slow and you're like, is this even really working? But it's not until you start to get a large amount of money that it starts, 10% of $1,200 is only $120. But 10% of $120,000 is $10,200. And 10% of $1 million is $100,000. So as the balance gets bigger, it starts to snowball and it gets crazy, okay? So you can see here on this table, between 18 and 28, you're only going to have accumulated about $22,000 or $25,000. $22,000. Sorry. Between 28 and 38, you would turn that $22,000 into $76,000. From 38 to 48, now you have $218,000. And really, once you get past $100,000, that's when things start getting crazy. So if you can afford more than $100 a month, the quicker you get to that $100,000, the quicker you get to like the crazy mind-blowing returns, I guess. But anyways, so you're 48, you're at 218. 58, you're at 585, and now it gets crazy, right? So every year you're almost making $100,000. You're making about 80 grand a year just on interest and putting $100 a month away. And once you get to this $1 million right here, theoretically, if and this isn't how it works in the real world, but like if you were to make 10% every single year, you could pull $100,000 out of your account every single year, and it would still generate you another $100,000 the next year. And a more advanced strategy would be to convert this into dividend stocks, but that's a topic for another video as well. But I hope this did a good job of showing you just how little it takes, to get $1 million. $100 a month, be a millionaire when you're 65. Now, let's say that you're a very abnormal 18-year-old and you were to max it out, which is $7,000 a year. That's the most you are allowed to put into a Roth IRA at the moment. You would have $6 million. And then what it would look like in between, $3 million. So, open up a Roth, get started. Even if you can only put $50 a month, let's look at that, $600. You still would have 500 grand. And like I said, if you can just do $50 a month for now, and then once you're in your 20s, you bump it up to 100, or maybe even 150, so you can catch up on those previous years, something like that, you're gonna be way further ahead than if you don't start right now. And that's what we're gonna get into now. So let's say that you are 25 years old. Now, you are definitely not too old to start. If you're 25 years old, you are definitely not too old to start. So you're 25, retiring at 65. Let's say that you only put $200 a month. So in the 18-year-old example, we were putting 100 away. Now you're 25, you can afford a little bit more. You're still probably living in your mom's basement, but you have dreams of, not having to work one day. And you can set aside $200 a month. That would be $2,400 a year. You would have $1 million. In the course of those years, those 40 years, you would only be saving $96,000 over 40 years. And the interest, just for sitting on your butt and letting that money work for you, you'll 10x that money, $96,000 or $968,000. So like I said in the previous one, you can see the first 10 to 15 years, it doesn't seem like a whole lot is going on. But once you get to about $100,000, that's when the compounding machine happens. And the way that works is, you make 10% on $2,400, then you make 10% on $5,000, then 10% on a larger and larger and larger number. And once you get to about $1 million, 10% of that is 100 grand. So it'll be producing $100,000 a year. So like at the end of 64, you'll have $1.1 million. You pull $100,000 out, you still have $1 million. That $1 million will make you 10%. That's another $100,000, and so on and so forth. So that's 25. Now let's say that you were to max it. Or how about this? How about $300? Let's say that you want to do a little bit more. Just another extra $100 is going to net you $500,000. more dollars in retirement. And if you were to maximize your contribution at 25, that's $7,000 a year, that's the maximum you're allowed, you would have $3 million. $3 million in retirement. Okay, 35-year-olds. Let's talk to the 35-year-olds. If you don't have a Roth IRA, you should be taking work off tomorrow to get this sorted because it's almost too late for you. I don't want to say it's almost like, but it kind of is. You really, if you want $1 million in a Roth IRA by the time you're 65, you have to start today. So say you have $0, you maximize $7,000 per year. That comes out to about $580 a month. You're making 10%. You're 35, you retire at 65. Calculate, you got $1.18 million. So you have to start maxing this thing out right now in order to get this thing to $1 million. Now, for my 35-year-olds, you might think that you can get better than this. And I didn't even get into this on the previous videos, but if you were to invest in the NASDAQ or something that gives you a little bit more risk reward and you want to be a little bit more aggressive for the first 10 years or something like that, you might be able to get a 15% return. Now, you wouldn't want to keep that in there once you turn 50 or 60, once you get closer to it, but you could try to play catch up and put it in some riskier things, but you're behind the 8 ball at this point, but not so far behind the 8 ball that you can't get to that $1 million. Now, let's say that, you can't afford that. Let's say you can only afford like $300 a month. So that would be $3,600. You would still have $592,000 in tax-free money in retirement. And that should be enough to pay off your house, as if it's not already paid off by then. And you could always convert this to dividend, a dividend ETF that pays out like, 10 grand or something like that a year, something to help you. Let's say you did $400, so not quite maxing it out. You'd be at $750,000. So it's not too late, but it's almost too late if you're 35 and you're just starting. It's not too late, but it's almost too late. But as we've seen in the previous sections, it gets worse and worse. So if you put this off for another 5 years, and then you say, "Oh shoot, I should have been maxing this out." Just 5 years, it goes from 1.1 million to 720,000. So even if you can, do like half, 3,500 a year, you'll be on your way to doing this. And then who knows, maybe in 10 years you get a raise. Now you can start maxing it out and potentially get your Roth up to where it needs to be, like at about $1 million. So I hope that was helpful. I hope, if this inspires just one person, especially a young person, to start putting away whatever they can and just get the ball rolling, because really, like, the time is on your side. Like, someone that's 35 doesn't have time. Like, by the time shit gets going, they're already 50. And by the time things get really going, they're 60. So, and this part of your life, 60 to 65, you want to be risk off. So you might not be able to tolerate the ups and downs that give you this extreme, these extreme gains. But if you subtract, 20 years from this point, 60, this becomes 40 years old. And then you get 20 years of just explosive growth. So get your Roth set up today. I'll leave a link below for Charles Schwab. That's what my Roth is through. And yeah, get started. I hope that was helpful, and I'll talk to you next time. Risky Brian out.